Hello, and if you're new to the channel, I'm Nathan, and this is my recently purchased 2012 BMW X5 35D, which just has over 240,000 kilometers on it now, and I've found all sorts of things I've had to fix on it, but there's no surprise because of what that badge is right there. But unfortunately, I found out something in the last couple of weeks that has made me really shake my head and made me question whether I should even bought this vehicle. That's because this engine here, which is the probably most reliable engine that BMW ever made, which is the M57, has one issue that I didn't know at the time of buying it. And that, of course, is the fact that the DPF system, which is the emission system, was partially deleted and not fully deleted, meaning that they removed the DPF exhaust bit there for all that stuff and obviously did a coating on it. That was all great, but they forgot to coat out the EGR cooler. That's one of the components of the emission system that also needs to be deleted at the time, and they didn't do that, or at least maybe they forgot that step. So I recently had to shell out about $1,000 just to get rid of a check engine light for an EGR cooler, so I was not very thrilled about that. As you can see here, this is the EGR, which is this thing right here. That's actually one of them, and there's also one near the back here, just behind where the turbo is. So yeah, I was not happy whatsoever because, again, I hate check engine lights. I think we all do. And not to mention that that should have just been done properly the first time when the first person tuned it or took it into a shop to get tuned. So I'm just a little bit lost for words, but nonetheless, I have to move on and have to do this properly. And I've already got it tuned, so now I actually have to remove the EGR system. But in addition, I also have other things to do, and that, of course, is on the intake manifold here, there are swirl flaps which commonly fall into the intakes of the engine and cause damage. So I will be deleting those as well, because I know for a fact that wasn't done the first time when I took this off in a previous video. And then also I have to fix this leaking vacuum pump housing because right at the bottom there, it's leaking. And not to mention, I'm also going to do a carbon clean because the intake manifold was pretty bad. And I'm sure that this vehicle has never had it done in its whole life. Now, the fact that this vehicle has over 240,000 kilometers and is still running like a Timex watch surprises me. And that, you know, it's just a couple minor things that need to be addressed. And the other thing I was finding, although I placed the injector here on cylinder number 1 and coated it, I still get a code for the injector number 1 and smoothness code. So I got 2 codes basically for that. So some people may say that it's actually the high pressure fuel pump, which I believe is just in under here. So I will have to look at that as well. Well, I think that's enough rambling on here. Let's get to the business of fixing this vehicle and make it run like it should. If you guys recall, in a couple of videos ago, I said I'm going to be replacing the air filter, and I'll be doing that this time. Same with the cabin air filter in there. So I'm actually going to remove all the stuff here on the top and then also take off these covers right here so that way I have full access to the engine. Makes it so much easier to work on the engine now that the upper main tray is gone. So now I just have to remove this stuff here, disconnect this hose, and then take out all these 11 mil bolts. And then there's a couple 11 mil nuts in there as well. And then disconnect some stuff at the back there. And then this intake manifold should come right off. With the intake manifold removed, it feels like deja vu because just recently I was in here replacing all the glow plugs and the glow plug module. So the next thing I do is remove the EGR cooler, which is this thing right here. And again, because it doesn't need it anymore because it's been deleted out of the vehicle, it's kind of pointless and extra weight. So I'll remove this now. I'm going to try and figure out how it all sort of comes apart. To get the EGR cooler off, I've already removed that coolant line right here and then capped where it actually is on the engine block right there. And then now I have to get these bolts here, which are 13 mil, and then also the 2, I think they're T45s in on this side. Now this thing's ready to come out. Yay, mission successful. So all I have left to do now is just disconnect coolant line to the engine block there and cap it, and then remove the rest of this vacuum line right here and then plug it right there at the end. So that one's capped, that one's capped. Now I have to use this back plating right here for the new one. I basically just put this cap over top of it. What a difference that has made. So underneath the car right here, it looks like most of the delete was done properly. They have the line for the coolant loop back. I mean, I think you can actually even delete that, but other things like this up here, that should have been removed. They just obviously didn't want to do it. So I'm going to do that now and unhook all the bolts that are holding it in. And then once I take that off, I'm going to put the new plate on there, and that should be done. Okay, next thing to take off is the vacuum pump here, and there's one bolt there and another bolt down there. Of course, I'm going to unhook this line right here. Got the new gaskets right here. So now I have to take this apart. And there's just a gasket right in there. Out with the old. There's a little bit of oil on the new one. Oh yeah, this gasket's the worst because it's all brittle. See, snapped right there. That's how brittle it is. Okay, on with the new one. The new one on there. And there we go, vacuum pump is now done. All right, it's on to the next task, and that is taking out the valve cover. Now, there's a lot of stuff you have to remove just to get to the valve cover, and as you can see, I'm already taking off the return fuel line, which was broken from the previous person that worked on it, so I will be replacing that. Leave it to BMW to make you do twice the amount of time to do something that would be simple on any other German luxury car, like Audi. I literally had to remove this whole rain tray right here, just so I can get access to that 6 injector, so now I can remove it. There we go. 6th one is finally out. Absolute madness. And just look how crusty it is. Look at all that stuff right there. So hopefully I'm able to clean this up and make it good again. I don't know if this valve cover gasket's ever been replaced, but it was rather crunchy. So this is what it looks like without the valve cover. And I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, because I thought it'd be a little bit cleaner. I know diesels are dirty usually, but this is pretty bad. Like, I don't know how long they went through oil changes. But yeah, if you look at the cam lobes here, there's just a bit of like fine pitting on them, which I mean, it's not horrible. It's not enough to cause any damage, but it's definitely got some wear. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this really bad? Let me know down in the comment section below. And should I run for the hills? So I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Obviously, whatever I can reach, I'm going to just do a light clean with some paper towel and pray for me. And to take my mind of how concerning all that oil sludge is, I decided to get right into carbon cleaning. And because BMW has a very unique design with their straight 6, we actually have basically 2 ports which are separate from each other that you have to use special adapters to do the carbon cleaning layer, at least the walnut blasting. So I just finished up with the carbon cleaning. Did it turn out to be looking like brand new? No, but they're a lot better than what it was before. And I have peace of mind, especially doing the valve cover and the intake manifold. That was horrible. So all that's left to do now is just put on the valve cover with the new gasket. And as you can see, this is looking a lot better than what it was before. Remember how there's a bit of light sludge buildup on the cams? These are a lot better than what it was. I am going to do a couple oil changes here just to kind of flush out whatever is left in the system. Again, not actual flush, but just the oil changes basically to run it through and hopefully clean up some of the residual. So here's the valve cover. It's all cleaned up. There's a little bit of sludge build up in here. So again, I pressure washed all that out many days ago and it's looking a lot better. And then of course you see the new gasket in place there. So the only thing with the new gasket, apparently you have to put some like RTV on these 2 spots right here. It's been a while since I've had this off. Let's see if I remember how to put it back on. Well, I got most of the engine put back together. I have the valve cover on and then everything over here on this side put back together. However, I'm waiting for a tool here to help me get those copper washers out of the cylinder head here because those are stuck in there. I can't get them out even with a screwdriver and I don't want to damage anything. So I'm just gonna wait for that tool to arrive. And then once I have that, then I'll finish up with the injectors, putting those back in. And then also I can do the high pressure fuel pump as well. As I mentioned, I am having a bit of struggle with that high pressure fuel pump, I think, leading to a couple of issues with the fuel injection number 1, giving me that issue of being the fact that it's saying it's out of its limits, and also that it's just maybe leading to a lot of sludge in the engine bay. Of course, that also has to do with probably oil changes and the previous owner not doing them very well. Usually I don't throw parts at a vehicle, but for $400 for a high pressure fuel pump, I mean, it likely is overdue anyways. It's probably falling apart, so I'll just replace it. So while I wait for those things to arrive, I'm gonna do an oil change here. Might as well just drain out that really crummy oil and fill something nice in there, at least while I have the time. And there we go, it's draining out. And it's black, and it smells like diesel. Sludgy. Something tells me this was not done recently as per the previous owner's suggestion. Might as well just take some old oil out of here and use that. Be a waste of a filter, honestly, but at least it's going to do its job. So here's a new crush washer that will be going on the drain bolt. Okay, the used high pressure fuel pump is here. Now this one came out of a vehicle with 180,000 kilometers, which I mean is not all that bad. I mean, it looks to be in pretty good shape here. The seal looks all right around there. And well, the rest of it looks to be in all right condition as well. So now it's just time to get this one out, and there's a bit of a process. So the high pressure fuel pump is located right back here. So you have to actually get this coolant line right here out of the way. So I have to drain the coolant, and then in behind this coolant line here, there's actually a cover, and then once you remove that cover, then you have access to the nut holding it in, and then once you remove all that stuff, then you have to use a special tool to then push it out, of course, once you have all these bolts undone back here as well, holding it in. So there's no drain for the coolant, so I'm actually just going to choose one of the lines that's the lowest point of the system, and then just pull that, and then allow quite a bit of the coolant to come out, maybe not all of it, but just enough to at least allow me to take out this coolant line right here. And then once I have that out, then it's, well, hopefully smooth sailing from there. Coolant line's been removed. This was a pain in the butt to get out, by the way, because I had to undo the 4 bolts holding that in, just at least enough so that way it can slide out, because it's kind of wedged in there on an angle. And then as you can see, I have more space back here now to work with to get the high pressure fuel pump out. Next I'll just be putting the H17 in there, and then loosening this cover, taking that off, and then installing the tool. So this is the first part of the tool I'm going to install in that area I just took that cover out of. So there's actually a 21 mil nut holding the high pressure fuel pump from this side. So I'm going to loosen that off now, and then I'll install that tool. And there we go, that's the nut right there. Now I can install this part of the tool. All right, now that I have that first piece of this tool installed, I'm going to start removing all the stuff back here, and of course the 3 bolts holding it in. With that second part of the tool now threaded in, all I have to do now is turn it clockwise and wait for that popping sound, and then the high pressure fuel pump will be free. So the tool I was waiting for finally arrived. This tool will help me remove those copper washers inside the cylinder head. I'll be so much happier when I don't have to crawl in the engine bay anymore. So basically this end goes down, and you just thread it on like so, and then you use this, and there you go, comes right out. Fortunately, not all the cylinders have stuck copper washers in them, but most of them do. I cleaned out all the injector ports on the cylinder head, so that's nice and clean. There's nothing in there, no debris, nothing, including in where the pistons are. I kind of vacuumed inside there as well, inside the cylinders, so there should be nothing there. So now it's just time to install the injectors back. Now, of course, you have to install a new O-ring here, and then a new copper washer on the end. And actually this is cylinder 1, and it actually looks to be a little bit worn already, but that's just what happens, I guess, through a couple of heat cycles. They just turn different color. So the next order of business here is dealing with the intake manifold. So first I'm going to start off with removing all the old gaskets, and then taking out the swirl flaps, deleting those, and then obviously removing this old part of the EGR system right there, and adding the new fitting right there. So now just to take it, I think these are all T20s on the back. Okay, let's see if we can get these things out of here now. These are pretty disgusting. There we have it. Looks a bit gummed up, which I'll be cleaning up later. So I just have to remove this. Pretty gross inside there. All right, now it's time to install the new plastic covers. It should be rather easy. So the intake manifold's back on, so all I have left to do is put the rain tray and all that assembly back together, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Okay, so I've drained out the rest of the old coolant here. It's not quite orange, but a bit pinkish. You may have seen this in my other videos. This is what is called a vacuum filler, and it's good for cooling systems. So when you're pulling in the new fluid, it doesn't actually create any airlocks within the system, so you don't have to bleed it. Right now it's about -14, which is, I mean, good enough for what my actual air compressor can do for a vehicle like this. Usually you want it at like -15, but that's close enough. And now that that's held pressure for quite some time and has not moved, I'm going to use this here, which is some distilled water with some Prestone cooling system cleaner in there, and that should help clean out the system of the old coolant. So I'm just going to feed this inside this here, and then now I can release this. And as I'm doing this, the pressure will drop or go back to 0, essentially. You guys maybe remember in the video that I did the glow plugs, that when I took out the air filter here and the cabinet air filter, they were both disgusting. So I'm going to replace those now, because they're probably long overdue. I mean, look at that. That's gross. Can't even see the light of day through it. Here's the old, here's the new. I can actually see light through this one as well. So on the left hand side there's a new filter, and on the right there's the old one. And believe it or not, I did clean this before, and again, it's just gross. I just end up filling this with the blue coolant because it's easier to get this fitting inside this jug here. All right, let it begin. Time to do the oil change here. So I've already drained the oil and it's still black. Now we're going to take out the oil filter here and see what we got. Okay, better than what it was before. I know it's a bit messy down here. I didn't spill any oil onto the driveway, fortunately, but just spills a little bit around it because this was not big enough to hold all the fluid. Now I'm just going to torque that drain bolt, which you cannot see. Mark that as complete. All right, let's see how bad the second oil filter is. But we're still going to change it out, because that's what we should do. After getting everything buttoned up here with the BMW and taking it out for a drive, it was fine. Until a few days afterwards, it wasn't, because I was getting what I think was a slight misfire happening, because the RPMs were starting to flutter and the engine was shaking a little bit here, just at idle. And that didn't really show until about a few days after. Now again, I put all the things back where it went to, everything was fine, but yet I was still getting that engine light for, you know, the same codes for cylinder number 1 with the injector, you know, giving me the smoothness code, and also just that the injector was past its max learning capabilities, whichever that really means. But yeah, everything was, again, as it was, but I was hoping, obviously, by doing all this work, it would have helped clear that code for that injector, you know, doing the carbon clean and just being a little bit extra careful, but no, it didn't. Unfortunately, it did not. So the car, yes, was misfiring. So I decided that, you know what, after doing a bit of research and asking mechanics what they think, they said, you know what, just replace the injector, because that's likely what it is. And before I went out and just got a warranty for a new injector, I decided to actually replace that injector, swap it rather, with cylinder number 2, and it got worse. I actually got an actual misfire code, which is, I mean, good, but it's also bad. That means that injector is not working like it should. So fortunately, I swapped out that injector just with a new one, and now the car is running perfectly fine, no check engine light. And again, that check engine light would normally come on when I'm on the highway, because it's obviously at higher RPM and running at a certain speed. So that would usually, when it would generate, it has not come on in the last few days. I've been quite happy. And again, the car runs so much smoother than it ever did before. So with all that being said, I'm grateful that the car is working the way it should. I mean, knock on fake wood trim here, that nothing else goes wrong in the near future, and that I can just drive it as my daily and also tow with it like I intended to originally. And with all that being said, I want to say thank you very much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button, and also consider subscribing so that way you don't miss any future videos like this and other car projects and car reviews on my channel. And until next time, take care. Bye now.